Welcome back, Guardians. Okay, not sure what the audio is like right now. Okay, we're pretty good. Anyway, so gonna probably be slowing down a little bit on these journals um, because I'm focusing more on actual tabletop gaming and crafting in general. Because artist poet is my name, and I'm not doing very many artistic things. Although poetry seems to always be there, regardless of what I do. In any case, so I want to do more artist stuff, and gaming is fun. Video gaming is fun. But tabletop gaming is also very fun, and I could pause at any time. I could walk away and leave it sitting there for days on end and not have to worry about too much other than it collecting dust. Maybe possibly something knocks it over or something or whatever, but that's the thing. The point being is this: I want to talk a little bit about a YouTube channel I stumbled across a couple days ago, or a day ago, really. It's called Map Crow. That's Mapcrow. In particular, the video that brought me into his channel is called Making My Own TTRPG Part 1. This was about a month ago, so I'm not sure. He's probably a slow burn kind of channel, it looks like. But he does more than just talk about game design. He is, like his name says, he makes maps and how to integrate those maps into your tabletop role playing game experience. Now, I'm going to throw a little semantic out there. TT for tabletop. Tabletop is one word in reference to gaming. So it's a TRPG versus a VRPG, a video role playing game versus a tabletop role playing game. Destiny is not an RPG. It is not an RPG. It is a first person shooter that's set in a multiplayer environment with a very fixed narrative and a string of collectibles to acquire. The end game in Destiny does not exist. As long as they keep expanding the loot pool, as long as they keep expanding the content as activities are concerned, and as long as they keep having power creep, um, Guardian power levels right here, as long as this keeps going up, as long as these items keep, being added to the loot table, there's no end game. There, calling raids end game content is totally another semantic square that I'm going to throw at you. Um, so yeah. Anyway, so watching him talking about designing an actual tabletop game, adventure game, he brought up a concept called the verbs, and the verbs are what your players are supposed to do in the game to make the game happen. Um, for instance, if you think about Dungeons and Dragons, the five pillars of D&D, or the three pillars of D&D is role play, exploration, and combat. And through those three activities, the players solve problems and complete missions and things like that. So in Destiny, the verbs are shoot shit and collect loot. You collect loot to advance your character, to progress your character's abilities in game mechanics, and you shoot stuff because that's your primary verb in this game. It's a first person shooter. So anyway, like I said, go check out his channel, Map Crow. But it got me thinking about why I've been ever since I was a little guy, even before Dungeons and Dragons. My dad introduced me to pencil and paper games like like Connect the Squares, or Battleship, a grid paper version of Battleship, and Tic Tac Toe and Hangman and all that stuff. Um, I was always interested in making my own games, and my dad came up with a couple of his own little variations on a theme. Um, yeah, okay, so let's see. First opulent or haunted weapon you focus each week will be a deep sight mod. First opulent, okay. My son was pointing out that there are patterns that you can purchase, but I had not unlocked that yet. So I don't know what I did wrong here. Manifesting. Gain the ability to focus haunted armor. Haunted alcove chests and opulent chests have a chance to reward opulent umbral energy. Binding at the end of nightmare containment rewards. So these are locked out. Um, focus haunted weapons. I First time you redeem a bound presence. Huh. First opulent or haunted weapon you focus each week will be deep sight modded. Oh, this must be what it is. First opulent or haunted weapon you focus each week will have an additional perk. So this must have been what I had to focus on. Instead of putting resources into this, I should have put it into this. That means that when I focused this weapon here, then one of these will be deep sight modded, or a pattern per se. Okay, so totally shot my ass in the foot kind of scenario. So Season of the Haunted, let's see. I'm looking for things that I can do to gain modules. Secret Triumphs. Let me see. That's weird. I don't know how to progress this anymore. That's a bummer. So yeah. Anyway, so thinking about the terms of the verbs. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you have explore, role play, and combat. And those are the basic three pillars or three areas of play that you have in most tabletop role playing games. Now, like I said, I've been always interested in creating my own since the very first time I got, introduced to the idea of game creation. And I've made a number of mini games, or pocket games, or small table desktop type games where you move tokens around. It can be as simple as the roll a die or flip a spinner kind of situation, move a space, and then do things as you land on spaces. Um, and other things that I've done where it's like you have multiple uh, elements working against each other, like in a game of chess or checkers. So when D&D came around, I got really interested in playing lots of Dungeons and Dragons, and then of course more and more RPGs came out, both from TSR and other companies. And I started looking at all these different rule sets, and for a long time I did collect RPGs simply for their rule sets. And then I got introduced fully and completely into miniature tabletop games, miniatures combat games, by way of for the Rogue Trader rule set for Warhammer 40,000 way back in the 80s. The original was called Rogue Trader, Battles in the 41st Millennium, or Battles in the World of Warhammer 40,000, I think it was really called. But in any case, and that really sparked my imagination because those rule sets not only included a very, very simple and oftentimes cumbersome set of instructions to do, miniature on miniature fights, but also gave you some background material to base your own designs on, your own unit designs on. You can make troops, custom character troops, and you can make custom vehicles. Because at the time, GW did not have its own branch of vehicle miniatures, and at the time things were still being cast in metal, so making metal vehicles was very, very expensive. Oh, how the things have changed with GW now and Citadel. But the point being is that I've taken to wanting to create my own set of rules, but what I was really doing was picking and pooling bits and pieces from different games to amalgamate my own set of rules that I wanted, not realizing that at the time, of course, this is a high schooler's brain here that I'm talking about, and a young freshman's in college brain, so 20 something's brain, where rules were very important. Fitting in and abiding by the norms of your community were essential because you wanted acceptance. I mean, it's just a natural biological thing that people do. Um, as I got older, I started realizing, if I don't feel like I want to add all these modifiers to the attack roll, I don't have to. Let's just make the attack roll, and if you fail, you get a reroll. Little did I realize that at that time I had, stumbled across the concept of advantage, which I did read about in Dragon Magazine sometime before that. And I started thinking to myself, well, this is kind of cool. This was a house rule for one of the game designers that wasn't actually in the official rules until I think 5th edition came around. I think there was a proto version in 4th edition, but nobody really liked 4th edition because 4th edition was set up to play like a board game and not a true role-playing game, theater of the mind kind of situation. 4th edition went heavy into battle maps and miniatures and terrain and stuff like that. And for me, being a miniature war gamer or combat gamer, miniatures combat gamer, um, because again, semantics, through the community, lots of people who play miniature battle games don't want to call them war games because a war game is something completely different. It goes into military science. So, yeah, basically trying to bridge the gap between miniature battles and role playing elements became something of a challenge for me to climb. And then realizing that what I was really doing was trying to come up with a house rule set that I could then overlay onto any other game system that my friends and I wanted to play. That way we had something that was truly universal. And this goes into what I was talking about yesterday with this unifying theory of everything. You can't really have a single set of rules for every scale, for every element, for every environment, but you can have some mechanics that bridge those different sets of rules together so that you can have an easier transition from, say, from the troop level to the armors and vehicles levels, to the bunkers levels, to the battleship level, to the starship level, or whatever you go to. um, you can have 60-foot tall units running alongside 8-foot tall units. um, and the rules would be, might be different rules for each scale of those units, but there's a unifying mechanic that helps each of those rules work with each other. It's not going to be elegant, obviously, because you're going to have to constantly be switching gears in your head for that, which is why most battle games focus on just mecha or just troops, and then if there's troops with mecha, the mecha operate as an outside bonus to the troops, which I like that idea. That way you could still model the giant robot, you can still model the orbital space station, bring it to the table, show it off to your friends, get your approval, dopamine fix, and then it operates as, if it's on the table in its designated spot, that means that this bonus is in effect. And then if it's not on the table, in other words, it orbited away because it might not be in geosynchronous orbits, then the effect is no longer in play. Or if it got shot down, or it was sabotaged in some way, or whatever like that, or maybe it didn't come into from reserves just yet. Um, GW tried to do something in, I believe it was 5th edition Warhammer 40K, where they introduced a concept for flyers, where they would enter the board at one point, draw a line through the board, and exit at the other point. And then any units within range of that path could shoot at the flyer and possibly down it, and the flyer could shoot at any of those units as well. Um, and I thought that was a pretty nice little way to introduce something that was operating at an entirely different mechanical level than troops, moving faster, moving farther away, having better sensor attacks. But then troops could also have better evasion because they were smaller units, and they could hide in little cracks. It'd be harder for, the fighter plane to target them because of all the cover they would have, the troops, that is. So, circling back to the main point, um, developing, game rules and mechanics around the idea of what it is your character is supposed to do in the game is a fantastic way to start it off. And organically, I've been kind of doing this with my own character and my own gameplay with Destiny and Elder Scrolls and Minecraft and even Conan Exiles and Mobile Battlesuit Operation 2. Um, it's finding out what it is my character is supposed to do in this game, and then finding the avenues that best facilitate those goals. For instance, in Destiny, you're a shooter. You go around shooting stuff, and you collect loot to make yourself a better shooter, or you practice in different game modes to make yourself a better shooter. But that's basically all you are. This is a first-person shooter. The fact that it's a shared world does not make it an RPG, does not make it an MMO. Um, it just makes it a multiplayer shared world game. In other words, I'll have to deal with other people's varying skills and egos, because ego gets really pushed in this game. It's not what we want to play. I like a simple aesthetic for my character, and I try to find some kind of shader that might help them do their job a little bit easier. In other words, not get shot at. But when you're versus an AI, basically the NPCs in the game, that's not going to be much of a concern because they're always going to find you. The enemies are going to find you. There's no stealth in this game other than going completely invisible like the hunter can. Crouching does not make you harder to find. It does make you harder to hit, but that's about it. Okay, this is a much better. Impulse Amplifier is nice, and Unstoppable Force is a good perk. Blocking damage with your shield increases projectile damage for a short time, and then making that go faster. Shield duration, slightly improved stats increase there. Okay, so this improves my shield duration. Um, I actually, I don't know. Let me see. Mostly for a game for a glaive being a handheld melee, being mostly a melee weapon, you want handling to be as high as possible. So I think, yeah, I think that's going to be a better choice. We'll get rid of this one. I'm going to put that back there. Okay, so yeah, thinking about the verbs of the game you're playing and what can you do to make those better? Does power level make me a better fighter? Yeah, when power levels are enabled, mostly going to be in things like raids, trials, nightfalls, and strikes. But then strikes are also kind of handicapped at a point. You can have only so many power levels before it's no longer going to matter. Uh, Diminishing returns is what they call it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot lately, and why, like I said, I'm pretty much going to be pulling back a little bit on the whole Destiny play because I'm getting to a point where I'm not really feeling the engagement. I'm gonna go dig around on the internet for a little bit to find out how I can get more of these enhancement cores for the Crown of Sorrow. Um, because that's something I want to do. I wanted to collect the patterns. That's the thing. The game is also a collector. It's a shooter collector. So those are the two verbs. So you have to figure out what you're going to do to help yourself collect things and stuff like that. But in any case, that's about all I'm going to share. This has gone on a little bit longer than I wanted it to. Um, so yeah, I want to say thanks for hanging out. Thanks for stopping by. Go have some fun.